a khichdi. It is so convoluted and so complex and so complicated that even allies are fighting each other. Yesterday's enemies are today's friends. Today, on the last day of the filing of nomination, a dramatic turn of events, Nawab Malik, a man who the BJP despises. In fact, they sent him to jail. They accused him of being a Dawood Ibrahim henchman. Today, that same Nawab Malik is fighting on an NCP Ajit Pawar ticket. He is the NCP Ajit Pawar official candidate for Mankhurd in Mumbai. There is also a Shiv Sena Shinde candidate on that same seat. So both of them will be taking each other on in that seat. Similar is the situation in the Maha Vikas Aghadi. There are about half a dozen or so seats where there are friendly fights, either between Shiv Sena UBT or Congress and NCP Sharad Pawar. It's a complete khichdi. It's a complete mess. The question and what is missing is the voter of Maharashtra is asking a very simple question tonight. Is ideology so fungible that someone who was yesterday Dawood's henchman is today an official candidate of the Mahayuti? Is ideology so convenient and is corruption such a forgotten issue that for the Mahavikas Aghadi, they can take each other on in at least half a dozen seats? In fact, they did not even declare, even after nominations have closed, how many seats officially Congress, Sena UBT and NCP Sharad Pawar are fighting. They've just gone ahead and filed nominations. So where does this leave the voter of Maharashtra? All right, so the last minute drama on the last day of filing nominations is Ajit Pawar. His faction of the NCP has fielded Nawab Malik, an ED accused, somebody the BJP has said was Dawood's henchman, accused him of colluding with no less than Dawood Ibrahim's sister to take over a property right in the heart of Mumbai. Now, the BJP is apparently upset with the Ajit Pawar faction, with the whole fielding of Nawab Malik. BJP's Mumbai president Ashish Shelar has said that the party will not campaign for Nawab Malik. The BJP has also made it clear that they will not promote people who are associated with Dawood Ibrahim. This is what Ashish Shelar, the Mumbai president of the BJP, has said. But the question is, why is your ally giving him a ticket? Why is he being officially fielded as a candidate from one of your alliance partners? But anyway, that's the last minute drama that we've had on the last day of filing of nominations. There are friendly fights, like I said, at least half a dozen of them in the Mahavikas Aghadi as well. So, is this sort of drumming down on the voter of Maharashtra, saying that we can put up whoever we want, we'll be in an alliance, but we'll still put up candidates against each other. We can accuse people of being corrupt, but we'll still give them a ticket. We, have ideological differences, but we'll still give him or her a ticket. Let's play out the story so far and then we'll go across to our guests.
What is the public's vision? That's what I want to hear. What is their aspiration for Mumbai, for Maharashtra? That's what I want to understand. That's the vision I will take to the Chief Minister. And that's his vision, that's my vision. Those who make false promises, they overpromise and underdeliver. I don't want to make that mistake.
कई लोग महाविकास आघाड़ी कहते हैं हम ये करेंगे वो करेंगे, हम चौकार मारेंगे, हम छटकार मारेंगे, लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ ये विधानसभा की जो मैच है ये महायुति जीतेगी.
नगर मानपुर की जनता के आग्रह पे चुनाव लड़ रहा हूँ. वहाँ पे जिस तरह की परिस्थिति है, पिछले 15 सालों से एक दहशत का माहौल बनाया गया.
वोट जिहाद का समर्थन करने वाले अबू आदमी और आतंकवाद के समर्थक नवाब मलिक को हराएंगे और बुलेट पार्टी को विजयी करेंगे.
All right, let's open this up to our guests. Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Matthew Antony, Spokesperson of the Congress Party, joining us. Daniel Francis, Spokesperson of the Shiv Sena Eknath Shinde faction. And Clyde Crasto, Spokesperson of the NCP-SP, is also joining us. Sanju Verma, let me start with you. Let's start with the whole drama that happened today on the last day of filing of nominations. Ajit Pawar's NCP has fielded Nawab Malik from the Mankhurd seat. The ED had arrested Mr. Malik in February 2022 over alleged links to the D Company. Malik was accused of seizing a prime property in Kurla with the aid of the D gang. In fact, when the charges were framed, the court had opined at that time that he had conspired with no less than Dawood Ibrahim's sister Hasina Parkar to take over a property that is worth over 100 crore rupees. This same man today has been given a ticket and has filed nominations by one of your alliance partners. How do you respond?
The first point that I would like your audience to know, and which I say very unequivocally, is that be it Devendra Fadnavis, be it Ashish Shelar, or anyone who matters within the Mumbai Maharashtra BJP units have categorically said that they have nothing to do with Nawab Malik. Now, if Ajit Pawar has decided to endorse Nawab Malik's candidature from Mankhurd, Shivaji Nagar, that is entirely up to Ajit Pawar. But at this point in time, is Ajit Pawar still very much a part of Mahayuti? Yes. Could this have been handled better? Yes. But at the same time, is BJP taking a strong stance on corruption without flinching or batting an eyelid? That is also equally true. Now coming to the moot point of, what exactly the Maharashtra elections are all about. Let's be very clear. Let's not fool ourselves. I mean, giving ticket distribution is both an art and a science because, there are objective criteria that come into play, and equally there are subjective criteria that also come into the equation. Now, this is a very, very complex situation both for the MVA and the Mahayuti. I'm sure the MVA spokespersons will do the talking from their end. But I just want to say one thing. Let me just take your audience back to Gujarat Assembly elections. Prior to that, the entire cabinet of Vijay Rupani, including Vijay Rupani himself, they were all asked to step down, and Bhupendra Bhai Patel was made the chief minister, somebody who not very many people had heard of. But lo behold, BJP delivered, and how, giving one of its best performances in Gujarat despite an over 20-year-long perceived anti-incumbency, and ditto was the case in 2022 Uttarakhand, where I remember nobody had heard of Pushkar Singh Dhami, and he had replaced two former chief ministers, Tirath Singh Rawat and Trivendra Singh Rawat, and people said, oh, Uttarakhand is something BJP has allowed to slip under its nose. But what happened? We delivered one of the best performances ever in 27 years with the incumbent romping home to victory.
Just one clarification. There, the BJP willy-nilly changed its own chief ministers because of anti-incumbency, and the fresh faces were able to buck that anti-incumbency. Here in this case, it's not a BJP chief minister, and this gentleman divided his party. The other faction of that party claims at the behest of the BJP using hook and crook to break that party. Be that as it may, let the people of Maharashtra decide who is the real legatee of Baba Siddiqui. Thackeray. But let me bring in the others also, please. Matthew Anthony of the Congress. I am going to read out to you, sir, the 6 constituencies where MVA, the Maha Vikas Aghadi, has also put up multiple candidates. Miraj, Shiv Sena UBT has put up Tanaji Satpute. Congress has put Mohan Wankhede. Sangola, Shiv Sena UBT has put up Deepak Salunkhe, and the Shetkari Kamgar Paksha, which is your alliance partner, has put up Baba Sahib Deshmukh. South Solapur, Congress has put up Dilip Mane. Shiv Sena has put up Amar Patil. Pandarpur, Congress has put up Bhagirath Bhalke. NCP Sharad Pawar has put up Anil Sawant. Paranda, Shiv Sena UBT has put up Ranjit Patil. NCP Sharad Pawar has put Rahul Mothe. Digras, Shiv Sena UBT has put Pawan Jaiswal. Congress has put Manikrao Thackeray. So you are no one to say that, who is Mahayuti fielding, why is Ajit Pawar fielding and Shinde Sena fielding in the same constituency. You have about half a dozen constituencies where you are fighting. In fact, you have not even officially declared how many seats Congress is fighting, how many seats Sena UBT is fighting, and how many seats Mr. Pawar's party is fighting.
Zakka, there is no point in me trying to deny and justify anything here because this is openly out as a nomination. Now, let me come to the point that this is a possible election where the Maha Vikas Aghadi is very confident of having a success. And hence the aspiration levels and ambitions for individual parties as well as the candidates within the parties are very high. However, we have time till the 4th to see whether we can avoid the friendly fights. If at all, where all possible, we can avoid the friendly fights, we will do that one. And with respect to, we are not even questioning Mahayuti on that one. Our question to Mahayuti was only one thing. Ashish Shelar has made a statement that at no point of time we will not allow Nawab Malik to be a candidate in our alliance with Ajit Pawar. And now what has happened? What is Ashish Shelar's response to it? Because he's a candidate, he says that he stands a chance to be a chief minister. That's what he's saying to his voters in the Bandra West constituency. Now, what is BJP's stand on that one when somebody of that stature, the Mumbai president, has made a statement that we will not allow at any cost somebody who is connected with underworld in no uncertain terms to be a part of this.
So now he's saying that they will not campaign for Nawab Malik.
No, he said we will not allow.
Campaigning is Pawar, NCP's candidate. They will campaign for whoever the Shiv Sena candidate there in that constituencies. They won't campaign for Nawab Malik.
Zakka, let me complete. It is about campaigning, and other campaigning is a different factor. What they said is that we will not link ourselves with somebody who's connected with underworld. And Mahayuti is completely corrupted otherwise also. And then, about the Gujarat thing. Yes, BJP is very close to Gujarat because the Diamond Bourse has been taken out to Gujarat. The Gift City has been taken out to Gujarat. All investments have been taken out to Gujarat. And in Maharashtra, we are saying that the whole people are looking forward for two answers. One is the backstabbing of the two regional parties of Maharashtra by the BJP. One is of Raj Thackeray as well as of the Sharad Pawar. Second is about, after giving the Ladki Bahan Yojana, they increased the stamp paper price from 100 to 500, looting the entire poor people of the state. So, people are going to answer these questions too during the elections, and let us see who will win.
So let me ask Clyde Trasto, a lot was said before the Haryana State Assembly election as well. Everybody said, Congress will get 60 seats out of 90, Congress will get up to 70 seats out of 90. In Maharashtra, where in the Lok Sabha elections, the Maha Vikas Aghadi got 30 and the Mahayuti got 17, but it was closer than what many people assume. MVA won 9 out of the 15 seats where victory margin was less than 5%. The Lok Sabha Assembly projection, if you go by 17 to Mahayuti and 30 to MVA, it is still ends up as only 153 for the MVA, which is just 9 seats ahead of majority, and Mahayuti on 126 seats. And as you know, assembly elections are much more closer, tighter contests than Lok Sabha seats are. Nearly 46%. The only two social groups that back the Maha Vikas Aghadi, the upper caste, 58% NDA, India Bloc 38%. Marathas, including Kunbis, 46% NDA, 39% India Bloc. OBCs, 39% India Bloc, 50% NDA. The only two blocks, social blocks that backed the India Alliance ahead of Mahayuti were SC, STs and Muslims. Dalits 46 versus 35 of NDA, Adivasis 55 MVA as opposed to 35 of NDA, and Muslims 74 to India Bloc, 12 to NDA. Basically, SC, STs and Muslims helped you win these seats in the Lok Sabha.
So that's what will continue. That's what will continue the Vidhan Sabha election. The point here is very simple. The people of Maharashtra have realized who the Mahayuti is. So they voted against them in the Lok Sabha election, and they'll vote in larger numbers against them in the Vidhan Sabha election. There are a lot of issues that are there, which are affecting the people of Maharashtra. If you look at the big ticket projects that were taken away from Maharashtra and sent to Gujarat, has affected the people a lot. I mean, you talk about corruption. Now, the moot point here today is Mr. Nawab Malik. That's what we are talking about. I mean, I was very close to Mr. Nawab Malik as part of the whole team as spokesperson. And we kept hearing that how the BJP ran him down as if, underworld connection, Dawood connection. And today, they've got a ticket. If the BJP swears by they will not support anybody who is part of any of this kind of game or corruption or underworld connection, then why is Mr. Ajit Pawar still part of the Mahayuti? Ask him to leave. Why they are not asking him to leave? They should say it right up front. That leave, we don't want someone like that with us. That's as simple as that. But the point here is, it's like, I will pretend that I'm hurting you, and you pretend you got hurt and you start crying. This is the kind of game that they are playing. But the Bharatiya Janata Party has a lot to answer when Mr. Nawab Malik has got a ticket from Ajit Pawar. I mean, are they trying to say that Mr. Ajit Pawar is so powerful that he can do what he wants? I mean, this is the game that they are playing.
Sanjay, please, it's not just Nawab Malik. Ashok Chavan, former Congress Chief Minister, you accused him of being the major beneficiary in the other scam today.
There's a long list of people, Zakka.
Ajit Pawar himself was accused of being the kingpin of the 70,000 crore irrigation scam. Chhagan Bhujbal, who was booked in 2015 over irregularities in PWD contracts, is a minister in the Mahayuti government. There's a whole list of people who you had alleged were corrupt, who are now all part of your alliance. Sanju Verma.
Zakka, I don't wish to be heckled because, I see that when I speak even for 30 seconds more, I'm immediately shut down. So let me make some interesting points. First and foremost, BJP does not need lessons or certificates on integrity and probity from Congress, where Rahul Gandhi out on bail, Sonia Gandhi out on bail, P. Chidambaram out on bail, your entire top brass is out on bail, either in the National Herald scam or the INX media scam. So it's like a case of the pot calling the kettle black, or should I say the kettle calling the pot black. Now coming to the Sharad Pawar faction. These guys sit here and wax eloquent on national TV debates saying, oh, the BJP is mired in corruption. I want to show the mirror to you. I think what has shamed me as a Mumbaiker is the fact that Sachin Waze, who was expelled from the Mumbai police force way back in 2007 due to the custodial death of Khwaja Yunus under his long nose in 2003, that man, the moment Uddhav Thackeray became chief minister, the first thing he did was reinstate Sachin Waze not just as an ordinary police officer, but as the head of the most powerful wing, crime intelligence unit of the Mumbai crime branch, CIU. While Sachin Waze is out on bail, the Bombay High Court has castigated him in no uncertain terms, and also the Uddhav Thackeray Congress Sharad Pawar faction for reinstating somebody with such dubious credentials. Sachin Waze in front
But
of
ma'am,
Justice
they've not given him a ticket to fight the
Commission.
assembly election.
Let me finish, Zakka. Why are you getting so rattled at me?
No, that's what I'm saying. You have given tickets to people you have accused of being corrupt. It's not
Yes,
like
I'm coming
they
now.
have given
I'm
tickets to
coming
Sachin
to
Waze.
Zakka, can I please finish? I heard you, and I don't wish to be rude. If your logic is that somebody accused of corruption but not yet convicted should not be given a ticket, then Zakka, I beseech you, please ask the Congress, the Uddhav Sena faction and the Sharad Pawar faction. By that logic, Rahul Gandhi should not have contested any of the elections post 2019. Priyanka Vadra should not be contesting elections because her spouse has been accused of land grabbing in Bikaner. So that puts her under not very flattering light. If, corruption is indeed an issue, then I want to tell Clyde Castro, you still continue to model mollycoddle Anil Deshmukh, who was the former home minister under the Uddhav regime, and Anil Deshmukh has admitted he was doing vasuli. He was doing vasuli for your boss Sharad Pawar.
Absolutely not. That's an absolute lie. That's an absolute lie.
Okay, Clyde, quick response. I also want to get in Daniel Francis after
That's
that.
an absolutely lie, Zakka.
Very quickly, I need to go to Daniel Francis also.
Issue, the court has given the clear statement. They are going and relying on Sachin Waze, who's a criminal
You took his name,
himself.
let him respond. After that, I'll go to Daniel Francis.
sorry.
Yes.
No, I need to finish my point
Anil
because
Deshmukh
Ma'am,
has
you
not
ma'am,
accepted.
please,
They
please
created
yield.
a narrative. Anil.
What do you mean, please yield?
Please yield
Did
means
I
please
heckle Clyde
allow him to
Castro?
speak.
Did I heckle Clyde
Ma'am, you
Castro
took his
when he
name,
was
let him
talking?
respond. I got to move on. I've come to you the second time. There's a one guest who I've not gone to in 16 minutes. So let me please go to him after that. Clyde, quickly, 30 seconds. I need to go to Daniel Francis.
Zakka, you need to give me time. You're allowing others to talk. Listen, Anil Deshmukh never accepted. They are relying on the statement of a criminal called Sachin Waze.
Anil Deshmukh has
how
admitted in
silly
front
can
of
somebody
the
get?
Chandigarh
It's right.
Commission.
See, now she's hackling.
Even-
So, okay,
I'm
now
not gonna talk.
let's move
Sorry,
away from both
I
of
don't want
them.
to get into this.
Zakka.
If spokespersons can't maintain decorum, then what do I do? Let me go to Daniel Francis. Daniel Francis, the point is that nobody is holier than thou. I just gave a laundry list of the people that the BJP had accused of being corrupt, from Ashok Chavan, Ajit Pawar, Chhagan Bhujbal, Hassan Mushrif, Kripa Shankar Singh, and now the latest being Nawab Malik, who's got a ticket from one of the BJP's alliance partners. Are we to believe that corruption is not a factor, family dynastic politics is not a factor? What is a factor after all in the Maharashtra election?
Factor is winnability. There's no other factor, Zakka, but winnability. And Majburi ka naam is elections. And no party in Maharashtra or anywhere in this country or anywhere in any other democracy also has been, could resist the temptation of fielding strong men and, whoever they are, whatever they are. Maharashtra election is also very unique. Every seat is very important. There's no wave, there's no undercurrent for any of the alliances. There's absolutely no wave, no undercurrent. Nobody can claim a higher moral ground, above anyone, or can claim a victory at this stage. We see that the kind of nomination filings that have happened within the alliances and outside the alliances. Everybody is thinking that we'll either play a spoiler to get somebody down, or try and win as many seats as we can. And that's the real objective of what's happening in Maharashtra today. And what we see in terms of Mr. Nawab Malik or other controversial people who are fighting the elections is also to ensure that those seats are won by those parties, because every seat will count.
No, but Daniel, you said there is no wave, there's no undercurrent. I tend to agree with you. But then 3 months back in the Lok Sabha election, Vikas Aghadi got 30 seats and Mahayuti got 17 seats.
I tell you what was right in that election. What was right in that election was message. The message that Modi is very powerful. If he becomes very, very powerful, the minorities and the backwards, he will hurt very hard. That was the message. Second important issue was the Vikas Aghadi. The real challenge before Vikas Aghadi is that who will be the chief minister. In Lok Sabha, that was not the challenge in front of them. So they were fighting together. They were together and they were fighting together, and they fought together, and they ensured that they get a better performance than Mahayuti. Now, when we understand, see today why Maharashtra is disturbed. Maharashtra was originally disturbed by Vikas Aghadi, because Uddhav wanted to be the chief minister. He didn't want it to go with BJP. He came with the Congress, and they had an arrangement. This was going to happen. This ought to happen anyway. Now, what has happened is that Uddhav, with Congress getting the better of numbers, Uddhav doesn't want to concede more seats to the Congress party. The Congress party is not helping him to become the chief minister. Mr. Pawar is running his own campaign. So this mess was a natural mess, because it's not a natural alliance. So we will see this kind of struggles within these alliances. And with
let me ask Mr. Anthony that, the fact is that you all claim that you're an alliance. It got to a point where Uddhav Thackeray, apparently Sanjay Raut in fact openly said this, that no political negotiation will happen with the Congress if Mr. Nana Patole even sets foot inside Matoshri. Now, this is ostensibly the state president of the Congress party, your alliance partner, who, was not being allowed to step inside Matoshri. And then finally, everybody came with this repressed formula 85, 85, 85, which was the declared formula in a press conference by these three gentlemen. Sanjay Raut was sitting next to Nana Patole. I don't know why that was not a problem. Finally, today, after nominations, this is the final number. Congress 102, UBT Sena 96, NCP SP 87. So that 85, 85, 85 formula, God knows where it's gone.
Zakka, first of all, I'll just give a rebuttal to Daniel saying that Vikas Aghadi has got a problem, because the alliance partners are not joining together. You had the answer in today's debate itself, where Ajit Pawar has decided on his own, and the Mahayuti alliance doesn't have any say in that. On your question of Sanjay Raut making a statement on Nana Patole,
what is happening in
you have the answer in today's debate itself that they all sat together in the state. So temperament runs high, when the negotiation happens. No, Daniel, I didn't interrupt you. Zakka, allow me to speak, please. So the temperaments run high because it's a high-stake negotiations. And 85, 85, 85 was a formula where we considered all partners as equal, and then we make discussions about the rest of the seats, how it is going to happen. That it is an aspirant election where we have a strong possibility of making the government. So every party wanted to have the maximum share. As I have told that in the beginning, that I never wanted to defend something which is not defendable. There are expectations, and so we are going to be in huddle and negotiations, and by the 4th, we will have a concluding agreement on the least number of friendly fights in the state of Maharashtra.
I just want to bring
Sachin
this.
Waze,
Bring this data point. In the Jammu and Kashmir election, which concluded recently, there were 5 seats where NC and Congress had friendly fights. All 5 of those seats Congress lost. So you might want to consider that before.
That's exactly what I said. No, there will be negotiations.
Zakka,
there will be negotiations in the next 3-4 days.
Now Sanju Verma,
Zakka, you made very interesting points at the very start. Just to add to that, and without being offensive, I want to ask the Congress, fine. You are saying that, BJP is having problems in Mahayuti. I, started by saying that, yes, ticket distribution is always, a very nuanced affair, which can lead to a lot of internal dissent. The beauty of managing dissent is something that the BJP does wonderfully well. But that is not the moot point here. I want to ask the Congress, Sachin Sawant, he has been the General Secretary of Congress for the longest time. He has been in charge of the Mumbai Communications Unit for the longest time. All he said was, I want to contest from Bandra East. I don't want to contest from Andheri West. But what did Uddhav Thackeray do? Uddhav Thackeray said, nothing doing. It is my nephew Varun Sardesai who will contest against Zeeshan Siddiqui from Bandra East. If you want to contest Sachin Sawant from Andheri West, तो ठीक है, नहीं तो Congress can do what it feels like. I am not going to yield even an inch. And in Kolhapur South, it is not a friendly fight. The Congress and UBT workers are at each other's throats. So the limited point is, right from Kolhapur to Baikala to Versova to Andheri, the Congress has not been given any seat that it originally wanted, because here it is Uddhav Thackeray who's playing the big brother. And let me tell you very honestly that knives are out for the Congress.
I want a minute on
You
this.
can't even decide on Bandra East.
Saka,
I want
to.
I'll come to you, Mr.
just-
Anthony, one second. Let Clyde respond.
You're talking, Zakka, the point is you're talking about us. I'm sure you know that, in Mumbai Devi, when the BJP wanted to contest and Atul Shah is now contesting independently, talking about controlling dissent, Atul Shah is going to contest independently, and Eknath Shinde has brought Shaina NC, who we know for years has been a BJP person. They fielded her in Mumbai Devi. So, it's easy to point fingers at others, but you are not able to manage anything that you are going to do. So today Atul Shah is going to be contesting independently against the BJP.
And some of the
so
stories,
Shaina NC is brought from BJP into, so that's how they are working. So the point here is, you can point fingers to anybody.
Okay.
The point here is, Nawab Malik has been fielded by Ajit Pawar, and BJP can't do a thing about it. They absolutely can't do a thing about it.
Well, they will back the
Today,
Shinde
Mr.
Sena
Devendra
candidate on that
Fadnavis has
seat.
fallen flat
That's
on
what
his
they
face.
can do. Ashish Shelar,
No,
they said they won't
but
campaign for
Mr.
him. They'll instead campaign for the Shinde Sena candidate in that seat.
Zakka,
I need
Mr.
a
Devendra
minute for- I need
Fadnavis
a
has
few
fallen
seconds for
flat
everybody.
on his face today. As simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matthew Anthony
Okay.
and then Daniel Francis.
He's
after
fallen
that,
flat on
I
his face
just want
today.
to ask the BJP spokesperson, who's Atul Shah, who's Gopal Shetty, and who is Mr. Gillot in Thane, who has gone out and filed as independent candidates. Don't speak larger than, anything else, because you have too
Can
much
you
of
tell me
problems in
who's
your
Nana
party
Patole?
where they're
Can you
where
tell
they
me
are
who's
where they are filing as
Hi,
independents.
Zakka,
And then
who's
I am,
Varsha
just like you
Gaikwad,
said about
who's
Sachin Waze,
Prithviraj
I am
Chavan?
ashamed
You
to
guys
stay in
are
a
fighting
city
against
where
each
one of
other.
your party members,
Varsha
Baba
Gaikwad
Siddiqui,
versus Nana
one of your
Patole,
alliance
Nana
partner
Patole
member, Baba
versus Bhai
Siddiqui,
Zakka,
was
Bhai
shot
Zakka
dead
versus
under
Prithviraj Chavan.
of a gang whose
Prithviraj
person
Chavan
is in the
versus
custody of
Baba
Gujarat
Siddiqui.
police. You are protecting that gang leader. You are
Okay.
protecting that gang
I
leader.
got
Who is
to get the final
Yes,
comment
yes,
in
yes,
from
Mumbai
Daniel.
Congress chief Varsha
Daniel,
Gaikwad. So stop
one
lecturing
thing
BJP.
is clear, Daniel, at least in the mind of the voter, it's a very straight binary choice. You're either voting for the Mahayuti or you're voting for the Vikas Aghadi. I don't think the voters of Maharashtra are confused about it. I don't think there's any viable third party or third alliance. It's a straight fight. So this election will essentially decide which of these two alliances will rule Maharashtra for the next 5 years, and this whole legacy fight that's been going on in these two parties, Shiv Sena and NCP, will also be settled in this election. Whichever alliance wins, the component which is in part of that alliance will become the true legatees of their respective parties.
I'll just say one thing. Before the elections in Lok Sabha elections, Uddhav Thackeray was roaming around in Maharashtra thinking that he's the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. After Lok Sabha elections, Nana Patole was moving around the state as if he'll be the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. The only difference I tell you, before the Vikas Aghadi was formed, around the Vikas Aghadi was formed and now, Sharad Pawar played a role in forming the Vikas Aghadi, and when the Congress and the Uddhav Thackeray group is fighting bitterly, destroying the chances for each other, Sharad Pawar has hardly stepped in to stop this fight. He's concentrated on his bastion and is going forward. Nevertheless,
Analyst is, I don't know where he comes from.
Clyde, no, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. I have to wrap up.
I'm not.
No, I don't have the time. I'm moving
insults
on.
and
I'm moving on.
accusations.
I don't have the time.
I'm not going to take
we'll have
insults
one
and
more
accusations,
month.
Zakka.
We'll
You
have
may have
one
not
more
have the
month
time.
where you can
But
make
I'm
your
not
points.
going to take insults and
No, fair
accusations
enough,
from my
fair
leader.
enough. Absolutely, absolutely. But I
I'm not
don't
going to
have
take
the
insults
time.
and
I need to
accusations
go on
from
to the
somebody
next
Mr.
segment.
Pawar was the
who
I need
believes
to
that
go
he
on to
can
the next
command the
segment.
boss.
Thank you very much. We will have one more month where Clyde can take pot shots at Daniel and Daniel can take pot shots at Clyde. I don't have a problem. But let's move on to the other segment because we're completely out of time on segment 1. Segment 2, it's not just the Maharashtra election. We also need to keep an eye out on the US elections, which are right here. It's going to be next Tuesday, exactly a week out for election day. It is the closest election, ladies and gentlemen, in the last 25 years. You have to go back all the way to 2000, when George Bush took on Al Gore, and that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. It got decided in a Supreme Court decision as to who became the president of the United States back then. This could be just as close. And why is it as close? I'll try and explain that to you in this deep dive segment. And also, early voting. There are about 30 million plus Americans who have already voted early. Are there any pointers there as to who they may be inclined to favor? All right, it's exactly 1 week to go for Election Day. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. The election is deadlocked between the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate. Many are saying this is the closest election that they've seen in their lifetime, and we will tell you why. Look at the latest CNN polling, the monthly tracker that CNN has put out. The month of October 2024, it is an absolute dead heat. 47% say they'll vote for Harris, 47% say they will vote for Trump. The problem for Harris is that she had a lead, a bigger lead a month and a half ago. That has now been narrowed by Trump. If you look at the same CNN polling tracker from September of 2024, and Harris had a good September, she had a good debate, the ABC News debate where she clearly emerged the winner. She had a 1% lead in the CNN tracker in September, 48% Harris to 47% Trump. But if you go back all the way to July, just around the time that Joe Biden decided to pull out of the race and Harris became the official candidate from the Democratic Party, she was at a deficit of 46%. So trailing Trump by about 3 percentage points because she was sort of inheriting a lot of the legacy and overhang from Biden. So she started off -3 points compared to Trump, and then she managed to go up against Trump, 1 point up in the month of September. But now it is a virtual dead heat. It's 47-47. Now, remember, Americans vote not just on the day, which is 5th of November, but there's tons of early voting that happens, both by postal ballots, which is called mail-in, or early in-person voting. So this is what we know so far. More than 30 million people have already voted early, some of them by mail-in ballots, some of them by in-person early voting. Now, if you look at the breakup of this 32 million, about 14 million, almost 15 million have been early in-person voting. They have come to their booths over the weekend, on holidays, and come and cast their vote. Because remember, unlike here in India, election day is not a holiday in the United States. You still have to work. So a lot of people preferring early in-person voting. Mail-in ballots too. And this became very, very popular during COVID. In the last election cycle in 2020, over 100 million mail-in ballots in that election. This time around, 17.8 million out of the 32 million are mail-in ballots. So the numbers are starkly less compared to last time around, but then the difference is that election was in the middle of COVID. This one, there are more people preferring in-person voting, whether early or otherwise. Now, here is how it breaks up in the early voting nationally. The Democrats traditionally have had an edge in early voting. That edge is reducing, but it is still a Democrat lead as far as early voting is concerned. Kamala Harris, 6.6 million people nationally, and Donald Trump, 5.8 million people nationally. So the Democrats lead by about 800,000 votes, but that is still something that can be overcome very much so come election day. That firewall that the Democrats have been building through in-person voting, because Democrats tend to prefer early voting as compared to voting on the day of the election. That firewall is right now around 800,000 votes. Joe Biden, for example, in the 2020 election cycle went with over 1 million plus firewall into election day. let's talk about the battleground states. How are they showing the early vote? If you look at the state of Pennsylvania, and this is the most critical state according to many opinion pollsters, Harris has to win Pennsylvania to win the presidency. 1.2 million ballots have been cast in Pennsylvania. So far, the Democrats seem to be doing pretty well in Pennsylvania. Harris getting almost 6 out of 10 votes, 59% for Harris, 30% for Donald Trump. In fact, the Democrat lead is over 380,000 votes. So going into polling day, if they have a 400,000 firewall, the Democrats should be feeling good about Pennsylvania, which is the biggest battleground state, 19 electoral college votes, a state which is a must-win for Kamala Harris. If you look at Nevada, here the situation has changed. 6 electoral college votes. Biden won the state last time around. In fact, the last couple of election cycles, Nevada has been voting blue. But here in early voting, it is the Republicans who are leading. It's a small lead, 40,000 votes. Donald Trump, 40% vote, and Harris, 35% of the almost 700,000 votes that have been cast so far. The Republicans have managed to improve their early voting ground game to take a lead against the Democrats in the state of Nevada. It's a smaller state, just six electoral college votes, but it is a blue state. It was a blue state in the last election, in the cycle before that. Now it looks like Harris might have to lose that state of Nevada. But let's look at Georgia. Again, a big state, 16 electoral college votes. In fact, Biden flipped Georgia by a very slender margin of just 12,000 votes last time around. Georgia does not release bi-party breakup of early voting, but they do release demographics. Now, here again, it's very interesting. Georgia has seen record early voting. 3 million votes have already been cast, both in mail-in as well as early in-person voting. In fact, on the first day, when early voting was declared in Georgia, more than 300,000 people showed up. If you look at the breakup, almost 60% of early voters in Georgia have been white. 26%, more than a quarter of the vote, has been black. Remember, in 2020, Joe Biden won the state of Georgia primarily on the strength of the black vote. It was a state that the Democrats had not won since Bill Clinton in 1992. Joe Biden managed to flip that by a margin of just 12,000 votes. Trump had famously hit out against the Secretary of State of Georgia, saying he was falsely declaring Biden the winner. He stood by his ground. He stood by the vote count. Biden carried that state narrowly. Out of the 3 million early voters in Georgia, 59% white, 59% white, and a quarter of the vote are blacks. Also, let's take a look at another key statistic in early voting, and this could point in a direction which might be concerning for the Republicans, because women are outnumbering men by a substantial number. By about 8 percentage points nationally, more women are casting their vote than men. In fact, if you look at this this particular figure, and if you break it down for elderly women above the age of 65, this goes up by a couple of percentage points. It goes up to 56%. Now, many women are concerned about the abortion issue. The Democrats have been really, in the closing weeks of this election campaign, have been really pressing on that message. It's about the women vote. It's about women's right to control their bodies, reproductive freedoms, etc. Look at all of the rallies that Harris has attended in the last few days, closing out her argument with Beyonce in Houston, campaigning with Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, campaigning with Michelle Obama. She's been hammering home the point that this election is about women. We saw this in the 2022 midterms. Suburban white women were the key difference, the key demographic that tilted the scales for the Democrats. They're hoping that women will come good again in this election cycle. So this number might even out by election day. Traditionally, women have preferred early voting as opposed to voting on the day off. This will even out closer to 50-50. But in this, if women are voting in larger numbers for Harris because abortion is the top issue for them on the ballot, that is something that the Republicans might need to pay some attention to. All right, it is the tightest race in a generation as far as the U.S. elections are concerned between Kamala Harris of the Democrat Party and Donald Trump of the Republican Party. Let's try and make sense of the polls and who has the edge with exactly a week to go for the elections on the 5th of November. Dan Casino is a political scientist from the Fairleigh Dickinson University. Thank you very much, Dan, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Let's start with, the polls, and there have been tons of them just in the last few days alone. Let's take the New York Times polling average, where the lead between Harris and Trump is down to less than 1%. This is the smallest lead that she has had since the middle of August, and the indication, at least for the last 3 to 4 weeks, has been that the gap is getting narrower and narrower, and that Trump is managing to close that gap. First of all, would you put too much emphasis on that? What may it be because of? Is it that Trump seems like the candidate who is coming from behind and could possibly score an upset win, the candidate with momentum going into Election Day? Or is that reading too much into it?
So what we always expect is the end of a race, you're going to see things tighten up. And that's mostly because Republicans start voting for the Republican candidate, Democrats start to vote for the Democratic candidate. And the country is narrowly divided. So it's not surprising that the race tightens up. What is surprising is that Trump does seem making up ground. But that's in the polling. We're actually not seeing that sort of momentum in the early votes that have come in. Remember, since 2020, many Americans actually do vote before Election Day. And those numbers seem to be favoring Democrats. They seem to be doing better than they were in 2020. So we do have a problem with the polls. As many polls as we have, pollsters are still very worried that we're missing out on a lot of Trump supporters. In 2020, in the 2020 election, for instance, we underestimated Trump by about 2 points in the polls. As a result, most pollsters are taking steps to basically add 2 points to the polls for Donald Trump in the hopes of making up that mistake. So if there is a polling error, it's probably on the part of overestimating Trump support rather than underestimating Trump support at this point.
But tell me this, what does the early voting indicate? I believe more than 30 million Americans have already voted. In the postal ballots, I think the Democrats seem to have an edge. In the early in-person voting, it's almost neck and neck. Does that necessarily give you an indication of how this race will break out?
Not necessarily. So what it actually tells us is less about who's going to vote, because a lot of the people who are voting early would have voted anyway on Election Day. So it doesn't tell us about the composition of the electorate, but does tell us about enthusiasm. So people who want to go out and vote early are the most enthusiastic voters. It's also good for the campaigns to have early voters, because basically if once someone votes, you can stop putting time, effort, and money into trying to get them to the polls to actually vote. So the fact that we've seen this real surge, especially among young people voting for the Democratic Party, tells us that they've activated this group of young people. And in the U.S., people 18 to 25 typically don't vote. The fact we're seeing so many of them voting in swing states like Georgia tells us that's probably a good sign for Democrats. But again, maybe these people would have voted on Election Day anyway. We're all going to find out what's going to happen next Tuesday.
Why is that happening? Because one of the big worries for the Kamala Harris team was that they're not able to break through to Gen Z, that Gen Z is switched off from what's going on in this campaign. And more importantly, a lot of them are anti-war, and the Biden-Harris administration has not done enough to stop Israel in Gaza. That's why Gen Z was tuning out of this election. But you're saying that the data on the ground from early voting, initial days, it may be completely different on polling day, but early voting seems to suggest that Gen Z is really turning up in big numbers.
Exactly right. And this is actually a huge problem for pollsters. All of our likely voter models assume that young people under the age of about 30 really aren't going to vote, or going to vote in very small numbers. The fact we're seeing these numbers tells us something else is going on here. And young people, of course, very hard also to get on the phone to do polls. So we don't necessarily know what's going on with them. We do know that there are groups of young people who are very upset about what's going on in Gaza, but there's, of course, also the case that Donald Trump is probably worse on Gaza than Kamala Harris is. So we expect that people are very upset about that, not to vote for Trump, but basically to vote for no one at all. Especially among young women, abortion is a huge issue, and the Harris campaign spent a lot of its time trying to turn out young women. At the same time, the Trump campaign is putting effort into turning out young men with appearances on podcasts, talking about Bitcoin, and actions like this. The idea here is that both sides have basically said we maxed out other voters. Turnout in the last election was as high as it's been in the modern era. So you're going to get new voters. You need to find people who otherwise don't vote. Young people seems like the best place to get those people.
So I think your latest FDU poll, which was released sometime in the middle of October, seems to show that the actual divide, and we keep talking about how divided America is, white versus black versus Hispanic, red states, blue states, etc. But the actual divide, and perhaps it might sort of show up in the polls this time, could actually be men versus women. And it speaks to the issue you were referring to a moment ago about abortion. Is that really the number one issue in this election?
I would say it's not even about men versus women. It's about a subgroup of men who really talk about traditional gender identities. They want to be traditionally masculine. Among that group of men, it's about half of men, Trump is up by 35 points. Among all other men, Harris is up by 20, about the same as she is among women. It really is not about men versus women. It's about this one group of very traditionally masculine men supporting Donald Trump versus literally everyone else. And yes, this is the issues. The biggest issues we see on the ground in America today are abortion, immigration, and trans rights. And two of those three issues are very much about gender.
And let's talk about the border, because at least the Trump team thinks that is the big weakness for Kamala Harris and her team. Of course, she's got this sort of sticky situation where on the one hand, she can't completely distance herself from the last 4 years. She was, after all, vice president. And yet at the same time, she needs to outlay a plan as to how she's going to tackle the problem at the border.
And the Harris campaign has tacked very far right on this, basically copying much of the Trump administration's rhetoric on this, saying they're going to shut down the border completely, even to people like refugees who have a legal right to cross the border. So this has actually been very disappointing, I think, to a lot of progressives and liberals, saying the Harris campaign has gone too far to the right on this. But the Harris campaign Democrats believe this is what cost them in control of Congress in 2022, and they're determined not to make that mistake again.
Are we also seeing an era in this sort of election cycle where people are now reverting back to their cultural identities, their sort of physical identities as the main reason or the main driving factor for why they're turning up to vote and who they're voting for?
Yeah, what we're seeing is a switch in what the main driving factor is. For a long time in the United States, it was race. It was blacks and Latinos and whites, and your racial identity mattered a lot more than anything else. What we're seeing now is that gender identity, being a man or a woman, or really more importantly, being your views about how gender should be, how men and women should behave, and the role of men and women in society, that's the determining factor, because we're talking much more about this. Our polling also shows that is the core of Donald Trump's support, is people seeing him as being masculine, as being forceful. And that's when people see Donald Trump as masculine, they tend to support him. So the key for the Harris campaign is to try and make sure that Trump is not seen as masculine, to try and say he's weak. He's afraid of birds. He does all sorts of weird things. Like, he's not a masculine guy. But at the same time, the Trump campaign has to also say that Harris is not masculine enough. She's not assertive enough. She doesn't have the leadership traits that are necessary to be president. This is a fight about masculinity and who's got it.
And if it's about masculinity, I want to sort of separate the two questions. One, how does that speak to a concern for a large number of voters, in fact, for large parts of the world, is the next US president has a pivotal role in ending these two wars, the one in Gaza and the one in Ukraine. And is Trump, because of his emphasis on masculinity, seen as more probable in doing that? And how much of a problem is that for Harris to tackle? And also, if this whole thing is about masculinity, then the question naturally arises, the corollary is America ready for its first woman president?
So when it comes to the wars, it's kind of surprising the extent to which the American public is not voting on the basis of foreign policy. Generally, the American public doesn't care a lot about foreign policy. We care more about the war in Gaza than we ever did about the wars in Afghanistan or Iraq. So the fact that the wars are up there matters. But neither the Trump campaign nor the Harris campaign has really announced a big strategy for how to fix it. Trump campaigns basically said we should just give Vladimir whatever he wants in Ukraine, or Bibi Netanyahu whatever he wants in Israel. And the Harris campaign is trying to find a moderate view on this. So I don't think that's really a deciding factor here, at least for most voters. As for whether America is ready for a woman president, well, not quite yet, I think. Simply because in America, we still associate masculine traits with leadership traits. So you have to be masculine to be a leader. And therefore, any woman is going to be coming from behind. She has to prove she's masculine in a way that men don't. If Harris can get in there, though, then I think it's going to be a lot easier for women going forward. The only solution to this is to basically elect so many women that nobody cares if you're a man or a woman anymore.
So I want to come back to the concluding part of our interview, and I want to come back to where the polls are, at least in the battleground states, because ultimately you have to win the battleground states to win the presidency. You could be 1%, 2%, 3% up in the popular vote. It doesn't really matter. As Hillary Clinton found out in 2016, you have to win the Electoral College. So would it be a fair assessment to say that right now it looks like the so-called blue wall states, which is Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Harris has a slight edge, very much within the margin of error. And in the Sun Belt states, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Trump is ahead. And if this stays, then Harris gets to 270?
That's exactly right. So the blue wall states that, these Rust Belt states in the upper Midwest that used to have factories and don't really anymore, if all those states go for Harris, which is where the polls are right now, that's the blue wall. As long as she wins those states, she can lose all the other swing states and still win the election. And that does seem to be the strategy right now. Of course, as I said, the polls, even in those Sunbelt states, in Georgia and Arizona especially, are very tight. And it seems entirely possible that she wins one of those states as well. And that's what we're looking for. Essentially, if Harris can take on election night, we won't know Pennsylvania election night, but she can take North Carolina or Georgia, Arizona election night, this is pretty much over and we can all go to bed early.
All right, Dan Casino. We'll hopefully be in touch with you as and when the election concludes on the 5th night or whenever we get to know, 6th. Last time I think it took 3 days for us to finally, at least at CNN, to finally call the election. And they declared it, I think, early on a Saturday morning. We hope it isn't such a long night or day this time around. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
This Diwali,
3 terrorists have been killed in the Akhnur encounter. If you recall, yesterday morning at about 7:25 a.m., Monday morning at about 7:25 a.m. at the Shiv Sena temple in the Sundarbani area of Akhnur, the first contact was made with these terrorists. Now, what we know so far is that these terrorists got in touch with some locals. There were some school-going students who first saw these terrorists allegedly entering the temple with their shoes on. These terrorists, when the locals objected to, these terrorists heckled them, shooed them away. They also asked these, school-going students, as per locals, whether they carried a mobile phone or not. Their school bags were also searched, and when no mobile phone was found, they were shooed away. This is perfectly in line with what investigation in other terrorist cases has shown so far, that terrorists infiltrating from across Pakistan are no longer relying on their own mobile telephony. They are depending on locals, taking hotspot for internet services and then connecting their own satellite devices or their own mobile devices and apps that they use on these devices, using the hotspot from the locals so that their location can't be tracked down. So this Akhnur group of 3 terrorists also asked the locals if they had a mobile phone, and when not finding it, they shooed them away. Now, yesterday itself, the White Knight Corps, which was heading this operation, it had eliminated 1 terrorist, and we lost one of our K9 squad members. Phantom was martyred when he took one of the bullets fired from the terrorist side. NSG, they're the specialized force to carry out operations in enclosed spaces. We are told that these Akhnur terrorists hid in a basement of a building which was inside the temple complex, and they continued to fire overnight. Initially, they believed the security forces, the 9 para special commando force, they and the NSG and the SOG of the Jammu and Kashmir police, they were all collaborating for this operation, and they believed that this will be a swift operation, but they did not want to take any chances or endanger any life there. Therefore, they waited overnight, waited till these terrorists exhausted their arms and ammunition. And this morning at about 7:25, 7:30, the second terrorist was also killed. The third one, the contact was made with the third terrorist, and subsequently he was also eliminated. White Knight Corps has put out an official word in which they have said that warlike store has been recovered. Now, this is also in line with what investigation has shown so far. The terrorists in these...
And now, please welcome our next Commander-in-Chief, my husband, President Donald J. Trump.
With just a week to go for the elections, Melania Trump made her first appearance on the 2024 campaign trail, joining her husband Donald Trump's mega rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Melania Trump was part of a star cast as Republicans pulled out the big guns for the former president's homecoming.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan was one of the opening acts, and he wasted no time in taking pot shots at Kamala Harris.
You know, when I hear my president and our president, Donald Trump, speak, he sounds for real, brother. He sounds like he has a heart of gold that's all for the USA. But when I hear Kamala speak, it sounds like a script from Hollywood with a really, really bad actress.
TV host Tucker Carlson heaped praise on Donald Trump and claimed the vice president has a low IQ.
10 days from now, to look in the eye to America with a straight face, it's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president, it was just a groundswell of popular support. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just a freak or a criminal.
Former GOP candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, in true Trump style, made an America First pitch.
If you want to seal the border, vote Trump. If you want to restore law and order in this country, vote Trump. If you want to grow the economy in this country, vote Trump. If you want to revive national pride in this country, vote Trump. If you want to stay out of World War III in this country, vote Trump. If you want to make America great again, vote Trump.
Trump surrogate Elon Musk unveiled what he called a dark Gothic MAGA look.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark Gothic MAGA. Well, the energy in this room is incredible.
But one of the most controversial speakers of the night was comedian Tony Hinchcliffe. He made a series of jokes that lent on racist stereotypes, like calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage.
It is absolutely wild times. It really, really is. And, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Now, again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody. This isn't exactly a perfect comedy setup. There's some people here. All right. Very good.
Hinchcliffe's comments sparked furious reactions from fellow Republicans as well as Democrats.
I need people to understand that when you have some a-hole calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, know that that's what they think about you. That's just what they think about you. It's what they think about anyone who makes less money than them. It's what they think about the people who serve them food in a restaurant. It's what they think about the people who fold their clothes in a store. Like,
You're
dude,
right.
Are you serious?
The
Like, are
privilege
you
of being-
serious?
Yeah, the privilege of being on this campaign is traveling across the entire country. There are hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans across in battleground states that need to send them a message.
With the race remaining too close to call, Trump rallied his MAGA base at the massive New York rally.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I'm here today with a message of hope for all Americans. With your vote in this election, I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of criminals coming into our country. And I will bring back the American dream. We need the American dream.
Viewers, the identity of a modern nation state is built around a shared space, history, culture, customs, and a sense of purpose. India's Bharat, because of an amalgamation of these characteristics that are rooted in ancient and civilizational past. Would, for instance, China be a cynic civilization if it was overrun by Indians? Would France be French if it were overrun by Arabs?